Baruch Fleischman here. Let me get this lined up. We are talking about the SIFRA TZNIIUTA, Sefer Zohar HaKodesh. This is from the Yeshiva Keser HaKavod in Nahariya. This is the Yeshiva of the Abu Chatzeros, and it's really quite a work. Let's go where we were the last time. It's going to not be a long shir. Over here, we're going through different ideas and different gearses, which we continually have in the SIFRA TZNIIUTA. We understand that think like SIFRA TZNIIUTA is 2,000 years old, and was handed from one person to the next. Sometimes there are errors in the scribes who copy from one place to another, and that's an issue in the Pirush here. So these shiurim, as you know, are not for beginning students in Kabbalah, because this is a deeper level of Kabbalah. It's really at the level that we're at. I don't want to say that we're at a high level, but we're at a level where we've been going deeper and deeper into this, and here we are. So we're going to read over here. When it started, this is where we really were. We're working on different kinds of gersas. So the first thing that is text, and so this is what it says here. He said, "B'Yofa Shah." This is the Yofa Shah, who has a brilliant commentary on the Ari. He says, "B'Katvoy the Katvin Barucha the masculine." So this is the way that the gersa should be, that we had back and forth. And he said, but they don't have in this gersa, they don't have the word garas milas tzmira. Tzmira means binding. He goes along to comment on this. Like I said, it's not going to be a long shiur. And so what we're going to look over here is down here in the bottom. And he splits like this. He says, Pirush, Rabbeinu. He says, Shepinimia Sachotem. Now, we're speaking about Eric Anpin. And everything that we see about Eric Anpin makes Eric Anpin appear to be like in the form of a man, in a way that that you have the same thing when you talk about the constellations in the universe. Well, if you look at it, there's a lot of stars out there. So how do they pick out the constellations? Well, it's very, what would you say? It's very vague. But on the other hand, it's very solid because everybody agrees on it. Astronomers and astrologers all agree on this. What those 12 constellations are, and the fact that we are moving through them and going that way. Well, here we have the same idea. Here is an Eric Anpin, which is non-physical, but that he relates, that is the Eric Anpin, which is the core of the reality that we understand. It relates to human body. This is one of the basic principles of the Ari. So he says like this, so that you shouldn't get in too much into that thought. He says, now we're talking about the nose of Eric Anpin, because we talk about the concept of a ruach. A ruach has to do with breathing. So we breathe through our noses. Eric Anpin also breathes out through his nose. He says the interior of Eric Anpin, he says, Pirush, Rabbeinu Shepinibis Achotem, of his nose, is the name Sag. Yud Vav Daled, K Yud. Vav Aleph Vav K Yud is Gematria Samach Gimel 63. That's the inside of the nose. He's telling you, if you want to know what the nose of Eric Anpin looks like, it's actually letters. And each one of those letters acts as a filter and a shaper of the light of the Ein Sof, which has no physical light that we could understand. And it shapes that. That's the inside. It's the name Sag. V'chitzoni sachotem, who gimel shemus de Ekya. Ekya is a gematria 21. If you take 3 times 21, you get to 63 again. So the inside of the nose is one straight 63. As we said before, Yud Vav Daled K Yud, Vav Aleph Vav K Yud. And on the outside is Ekya. But there's 3 of them. Ekya with a gematria of 21. 3 times 21, 63. So you have 63 on the inside, 63 on the outside. Let's go on. So the lights go through these letters, and as they go through these letters, they form into Abba V'Ima. They go into Abba V'Ima. They go more physical and go further away from the original source. Then becomes Zer Anpin and the Nukva Zer Anpin, that is Malchus. Nimsa Shemiz Stoifis, he says Shemiz Katef. So the question is what is this word he's been used? But katvu, the katvin, he has up at the top. So what does he mean here? Shemitzkatef, and he says that means shemitzdaveik, chachitzonius, and epinemius. Because they're really the same thing, except not quite. So that the two of them are exactly together, because what are they bound by? They're bound by the number 63, which is really important in this. 63 represents Bina, and that's the place where the flow comes out. Vapanemius, imachitzonius, Baruch the Maskalim, and those two, in other words, once again, the name 63, and the Chitzonius, which is the 3 times the name to the number 21, another 63, they cause them to cling together, because with together of the ruach that is coming down through this. Now, obviously, if the structure of the nose is letters, then the ruach that's coming down there is inside of the letters. So he says, of a nikra rucha de masculine, and it's called by this name rucha de masculine. Now, the word maskal, which appears in the Idris, and appears over here also, which really is the word, you take the taf and you change it into a shin, because that's how Aramaic goes, and you have the word shakel, which has to do with weighing or balancing, a mishkal. Because this is what he wants to say, is that everything, he wants to say, what's the definition of masculine? Masculine means is that the light that comes through these letters, which form the nose of Eric Anpin, and then it doesn't just flow out of it, and breathe out like one ruach. This ruach, which is something I say is beyond the letters, it's panimi to the letters. So he says it doesn't shoot out like one ruach echad shava l'kulam, that's good for everybody. In other words, everybody, like you throw out some water here and everybody's going to take a drink. No, ke'echad b'shva, that they're all the equal. El b'miskal. What does miskal mean? Miskal means mishkal. That each one is what it comes out measured out. Mamish, the call echad. Kafi archo b'china. So in other words, all that we talk about Abba v'Ima and Zer Anpin, and then the worlds, our worlds, going down further and further, that this ruach, which is panimi to everything, is going to be dished out, but it's going to dish out the mishkal in a measured way. That is, everybody's not going to get exactly the same thing. Because Rabbi Be'etzchaim, when the Beis Brides of Be'etzchaim Shom, Shal Abba v'Ima l'Zer v'Nuk, we call echad yared lo haruach. So each one of them receives this ruach. Mishem acher yu'un sham ba'orach. So he goes into it. You have to really look at it, he says, to really understand what he means by the phrase ruach. He gets mishem acher. It comes from a different name. So I don't know what he means by this. So I'd have to see it over there, but I'm not going to see it. Instead, I'm going to go to the note here. V'im came hu b'miskal, and mishkal, it's a measured amount, or it's a specific weight, or quantity, or quality, called echad ve'echad kafichad sarach lo, according to what they need in order to be able to build them. So as it comes through this combination of 63s, this ruach, which is panimi to those letters, changes its form and is able to distribute itself into the other place, into the rest of the universe that is going to need this shefa, because this ruach is life force. Let's look down below and let's see what's going on in number Tes Zion, which is down below, which is our last note in this section. Let me see how I do this. I could do this somehow. Where's Tes Zion? It's way down at the bottom over there. And let's hear what he has to say. So he's talking about Bir Osius Yaakov. So this maskala, which we said before, and this is my pronunciation of the word. It's possibly could be matkala, maskala. Different ways of pronouncing it, but this is a basic idea that it is a balance scale. So this balance scale, which was composed of 3 letters, Yud, K, and Vav. He says, Hanisker b'SIFRA TZNIIUTA, and maybe this is really a further explanation of what he says. They come from different names. Different names would be the Yud, the K, and the Vav. They have different places they go. They have different processes that they dish out. So he said, Khan. So he said, Bir b'Yafashah, he explains like this, Sham, b'Beis Afanim. He has 2 different ways of explaining how you tie together the concept of these 3 letters, Yud, K, and Vav, or the first letters of the name of Hashem. he says that these are flowing letters. These are letters that are flowing down. Bir b'yafashah, he explains like this in two different ways. V'zel l'shonu, v'hem yud ke, which are Abba and Ima. That's what we've always learned. And Vav aleph is the way he spells it, Hu Zer Anpin. V'shloshtam, the three of them together, hamakablim rucha, that are going to receive then, this ruach, which we're talking about, is coming from a much higher place of very limited, powerful energy, but very limited physicality. He said, Rucha dechai and hanashiv lechem. So let me read again. He says, V'shloshtam heim hamakablim rucha dechai. The rucha dechai goes through them. In other words, they're like receptacles that receive it. V'nashiv lechem, hanashiv lechem, which is blown into them or breathed into them. Mechachotim the Erik Anpin, which we just described as two sets of 63s. That's one way of understanding it. That's what you have, the three. Yaku, that's where I pronounce it, Yud, K, and Vav, Heim, Hatlas, Reshim. They also could mean the three heads of Erik Anpin, and then he tells us what they are. He says the Gogolta, the Avira, and the Mochstimah. Because in one of them, the Hainu Avira, because again, the three heads of Erik Anpin. Erik Anpin is the fact has three heads. So he said one is the Gugolta, the skull. Another area is an area of air between the skull, which is really, really very pneumistic. And then the Avira, which is slightly less. And then the Mochstimah, which is a source of the Chochmah of Erik Anpin. Those three places. Because there's one of them here, which is actually the real place that this ruach comes from. And you can reason out why. The Hainu Avira, why? Avira and ruach go together. Air, ruach is air. So he says Avira, and he says, the Hainu Avira Mimeno. There is the Avira is one of those three that is the most powerful or the most receptive of the ruach. Nimshach harucha dechai kasher kamor adkan. That is through the Avira that the rucha dechai really gets its greatest receptacle. Adkan. V'rei b'yafashah, there's going to be more. L'cholon, we're going to see it later on. Sheneket ba'ofen hasheni, he explains it a different way, and we'll see it then. So I think there was a little bit that I started. So let's try a little bit over here on number Vav. Yeah, number Vav. A new idea, new idea. We're just going to read it down and we'll see what it says and try to get into it. He says, Rabbi Zohar, another Pirush, the Garis Khan, he has a different set on these first words. He said, B'katvu de katvin, b'tzriba de masculine, bound up by this balance idea, which we were saying is Yud Kei Vav, trying to understand what it means. Below Garis Milas Barucha, but here Rucha is not part of the equation, so therefore it's not that important. Let's go on and see what it says. So he says, B'tzriba de masculine, the Barucha is missing. Umavar the Ire, so it's explaining like this, a kol b'so Gogolta de Erik Anpin. All of this is talking about the skull of Erik Anpin. Birushu kachu, and if you understand what it's really saying, this is what it is. B'katvu de katvin, in this place, in the skull. B'Gogolta, that's what the katvu de katvin means. Why does it call it the katvu of katvin? Shehu makom islavshus ein sof b'so devek shel hadeveikut. This place in the skull is where the Ein Sof itself clings, in the secret of the force of clinging together, binding things together. Because the ultimate is that, as we know, the Ein Sof Baruch Hu is one. We have no concept of one because we're multiple. Everything is multiple in the world that we live in. So there is a oneness that unites it all. And that has its first manifestation in the skull of Erik Anpin, as if that was possible to say. So here we're talking about the skull of Erik Anpin. It's going to be another set of letters or something similar to it. Ki b'Gogolta mizdavkim kol oros of the Zayin Tikkun Gogolta. So we said before, there's a manifestation of the seven spheros, the seven bottom spheros, that what we call the Zat, of Atik, which is inside of Eric Anpin. In other words, it's the first refraction of light that we could, not the first, but it's very close to the first refraction of light that we see in Eric Anpin. That is, it comes inside of Eric Anpin. Called Orez Zayin Tikuni Gugolta, V'ha'aretz Las Reshim, and all of those go together. So we have 7 plus 3 is 10. I don't know what that means, but B'tzrira, and they're bound. V'kol Orez Ha'analtz Nitzrarna V'nitzkashim B'Gugolta, Al Yedecha B'Ein Sof. So what is it that causes these different elements, that is the Zat of Atik, which is inside now of the skull of Eric Anpin? What causes that to all be to cling to the skull of Eric Anpin? And that is the power of the Ein Sof. So he said the words of Miskashrim B'Gugolta Al Yedei Ein Sof, the Kasher L'chon U'Miyachid L'chon. It ties them together and joins them into oneness. The masculine, so he said, V'hu Shorish Kol HaMishkalos HaTachtonos. So this is the rule, this is the root of all the different balances, or the quantities that are given out, or that come through towards us, comes through there. V'sod Mishkal Mida Mishura Sosha, or Mayim and Rakia. Now, that particular idea, I don't know what it means. I'd have to see more about the combination of these three of light, water, and then heaven. So you have what that combination means, I don't know. So he said, so now let's look at the lashon of the Zohar Chai Sham, V'zel Lashon of Adiluk. Inyan Kotaf, it means really dibuk. It's a glue. It's something, the Kotaf, the skull, what the skull does is cause the light of the Ein Sof to be a clinging light. Kamavur B'Gemora, Neser Miktaf, which means Pirish Ha'aroch. The Aruch explains that dibuk Hasa'aras is clinging the hairs together, zeh b'zeh. So it's a force that clings. The Karvi La'ashkalos Anavim Kitfi, so they also call a cluster of grapes, or what do we call a bunch of grapes together, the way they grow. It's called the Eshkol. He says, V'kari La'ashkalos Anavim Kitfi, they bound together grapes. Gemara, that's over in Rashi over there. Al Shem Shedaveikim V'shofim Zera Be'azeh, because they're clinging together, they're lying together, they're stuck together. Ke'echod, B'dibuk echod. V'chein be'id rezuta, also in the id rezuta, Amar the kultra dekadfui. What does that mean? Pirish, B'derek emes, dibuk. And we're going to stop here, but become Korah the Gugolta Katva de Katvim. So now we understand why the Gugolta, which we saw previously, was referred to this word Katva de Katvim, why it is in fact that the Gugolta become so extremely important, because it has the ability to be able to bind physical elements to each other. That's Baruch Fleischman. This is the Tikkun Elevator Kolel, and we'll be back into this tomorrow.